It's 2:30 in Brussels and Paris and Madrid, 7:30 in a.m. in Mexico, and it's training time. Good afternoon, bonsoir, buenas tardes, y buenos días. Welcome, everybody, to this webinar, Cosmetic Industry in Latin America, the Role of Intellectual Property in Your Business Success, hosted by Global Cosmetics Cluster Europe and the Latin America IP SME Help Desk, where you will have the chance to know more about this cluster, the services that the help desk has to offer, the role and how to protect your intellectual property in Mexico so you can make the best out of it in the cosmetic industry, and what has Batman to do with cosmetics and intellectual property. Stay to the end. I bet you it's worth it. My wish and hope is that after the hour plus that we will be together, you will change your mind should you not still be sure about taking the leap. Anyway, I like this to be very interactive. So please share your comments or your organization details, or if you are enjoying this in the chat, we have a tab for that on the right side bar. As to the question, we have a dedicated tab too for them, and we'll sum them up and address them during the Q&A session, which will take place at the end of it. Should it not be possible, don't you worry, we'll provide you an answer via email within 3 working days. Anyway, Spanish and English and sometimes French are welcome. My name is Cesar Fernandez, and I'm going to be your Humbles Today moderator, and I'm very well accompanied by Ségolène Leloutre, International Relationships Director at Cosmetic Valley, and our beloved colleague Sergio Rangel, Intellectual Property Expert for the Help Desk. Hello, Ségolène. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to introduce rapidly what is Global Cosmetic Cluster Europe, since you might not have heard about it already. So it's just in a few words, in a few points, and don't hesitate if you want to ask questions afterwards. So Global Cosmetic Cluster is a European project co-funded by the COSME program of the European Commission. And the idea is to boost SMEs internationalization towards foreign markets. So our objectives, of course, is boosting SMEs competitiveness, representing EU cosmetic expertise, and fostering collaboration within Europe, but also outside. In key information, I won't go deep in that, but the idea is we have built an acceleration program dedicated to SMEs in order to boost their internationalization through different axes, if I can say it, actions. Market intelligence, capacity building actions, international trade and partnerships, and funding opportunities. And within each part, we have developed some different actions, such as market studies and market intelligence bulletins, such as missions. Next week, we are going to leave to Korea with a delegation of 30 people from companies, of course, from European companies, and training and different activities around that. The 5 markets we target altogether are South Korea, Mexico, we are going to talk about that today, India, United States, and Arabic Emirates. Next mission will be to South Korea next week, but for people who are willing to discover and to go further within the US market, we are also organizing a mission to the US in the framework of the Cosmoprof Las Vegas exhibition, which will be mid-July. Don't hesitate to express your interest, of course. I didn't introduce, of course, the consortium, and I should have started with that. Sorry about that. The consortium is made of 6 European clusters. Cosmetic Valley, I'm in charge of the coordination of the program from France, Beauty Cluster from Spain, Transylvania Lifestyle Cluster from Romania, ABB from Portugal, ITMIB from Turkey, and Polonia Cosmesi from Italy. So we are all together working on this acceleration program for our SMEs to have them. That's it about Global Cosmetic Cluster Europe. I hope it was quite clear. Don't hesitate if you have any question.
Thank you very much, Ségolène. It's so good, so satisfaction that you can have organizations and projects dedicated and sector focused, because when you are approaching something that is really related to your industry, it's good to know that there's people backing you up that really know about the matter and can even complement in those areas where you don't really know much about. So thank
Yeah,
you.
and complementary. That's why we're working with you, because the IP part is your specificity and expertise, and the idea is to, well, collaborate on that. And thank you very much for this webinar.
Thank you, Segalen. No, innovation, creativity, and IP go always in hand by hand. And this is why it's so important to know that intellectual property is the mechanism that allowed you to level up your business strategy, because it can really work as a business tool. And this is exactly the reason why the European Commission launched a service which is exactly about that, about raising awareness about the importance of intellectual property and how can you really use it as a business tool so you can really go international. This is exactly what we're dealing today about Mexico. But as you can see there, and similarly to the cluster, we are not just focused on a single area. We can are focused on not only Latin America, but also the full Latin American countries, which is 18 countries plus, but also in India, in China, Southeast Asia, and also in Africa has been recently released. And this is everything is focused on letting you know how intellectual property can really, how can you benefit from intellectual property. And this is absolutely business oriented, so it is not supposed to be for legal advisors, it is not supposed to be for those who really know the regulation, but for businessmen who really don't want to know how can they be prevented from being stopped at the border because they take their merchandise as counterfeiting products, for example, or how can they really license their products profitably. And as all is this business focused, and as the workforce of Europe is 99 plus percent composed by SMEs, this is exactly who this is for SMEs of Europe who are operating in Latin America or are willing to do so. So how do we help them? Well, first we have this helpline services, which is absolutely amazing because within 3 working days, you are receiving an answer to all your intellectual property related questions to Latin America. There's no questions limit. So if you are in the European SME and you want to know how much does it cost, how much time does it take, what would the best strategy for your case, you want us to take a look on the strategy that someone sent to you, this is for you. And as you can see, this is absolutely available in 5 different languages, including French, Spanish, English, Portuguese, and German. And if you don't find us via email, which is absolutely 24/7 available, you can reach us in events like this. Otherwise, you can just have a bilateral meeting as we're having afterwards. And if you have specific questions, wait until the end because we're having a Q&A session when everything that we can would be addressed. And then we have the trainings like this. They are absolutely focused on providing you practical tips so you can really kind of wear these IP glasses that I'm wearing all day and see where intellectual property is and what are the requirements and how can you get the best out of it. They used to be face to face. We are on the way of coming back to it, but in nowadays are kind of fully online. And so if you are seeing this, it may be because you are attending this lively or because you are seeing the recording. And let me clarify this to you all. Everyone's going to see the recording anyway. So welcome and use our helpline if you want to. And if your organization is really interesting, as the cluster was, on having a common webinar on a specific sector or in a specific country or intellectual property right or something that is more focused on addressing the general interest on intellectual property or raising awareness about it because people are not much aware about it, contact us. We can have something together. And finally, everything is absolutely online. All the content materials that we produce, and it's a huge amount, pretty reliable, made by the best experts, like the one who's joining us today. And you can find there are videos, you can find infographics, country fact sheets, facts, and something very interesting, which is the cost tool and the diagnosis tool. Both of them will give you kind of a picture of what's your IP status within your organization, some tips to improve what you have already, and the amount of money, at least from the official national fees perspective, that you should save in order to get a one right registered in the country that you like, any of Latin America, and it is absolutely updated and in euros. So it is really, really good. With that said, I'd like to, before we start having this very interesting session, to measure how much you know about intellectual property. Because among the audience, we may have people that know a little bit about IP, that know a little bit about IP within their territories, or have heard something about intellectual property in Mexico. But the best way to prove that is addressing this test. It's pretty simple. Three fast, very quick, answerable questions, three options, one answer. Let's go ahead with the first one, because after this test, after the session, sorry, we're gonna have the chance to provide an answer and you to measure whether you knew that, whether you learned that, or whether we all absolutely failed on that. So please submit your vote and let me know first, what is the novelty, if there is any, for patent registration. So if you want to register your patent, does it really need to be worldwide novelty, or is it sufficient to be national novelty? So the level of novelty that is taken into account is only what has been published and registered as a patent, for example, within the Mexican borders, or there's no need to have any novelty at all. Let me know. Thank you very much. So come on, be active. Let us know what you have. Then we have the second question, which is a little bit more complicated, I guess, because I want you to tell me what intellectual property right must be registered in Mexico to have an exclusive right over your creations. Might that be all IP rights? So registration is needed for this, or all IP rights except copyright, although it's pretty recommended. Um, or maybe none, because as far as you registered in Europe, you're absolutely covered in worldwide. Let me know, submit your vote. And we're done. And the third and final questions for now is absolutely simple right now, and something that I'm really sure we're gonna dive into afterwards. And this is the type of trademarks that we have. In Europe, there are so many, but is it in Mexico the type of trademarks available in Europe available too? We have the 3D, the smell, and the sound trademarks. Are they accepted? Yes, all of them. Only sound trademarks. The rest maybe too vanguardist, or maybe none of them. Let me know. Submit your vote. And with that, we're absolutely ready. So, Sergio, thank you very much for being here. The floor is yours.
Many thanks, Cesar. Well, of course, the intention of this discussion of this lecture would drive you to answer perfectly well in this past pool. It's part of my focus to provide you with the best information and with the best updated in order to let you know what's going on, what's happening in Mexico. And here I placed here this cartoon because also I want to provide you a good story, despite we will be talking about intellectual property rights. Some of them are related to technical point of view, to the technical vision. So maybe it is difficult sometimes to make a good story, but I will do my best. And thank you to the Latin America IP SME Help Desk for the invitation and also for trusting me with this lecture. Very welcome to all of you. And well, please keep in mind that the IP means fixed assets for your company. This is a worldwide known information. Fortunately, and mostly in Europe, I believe, I know that in Europe there are more and more culture in order to protect intellectual property rights. However, it is always a point to learn, a point to bear in mind in order to provide or to fix your assets, the asset for your company, the asset for your corporation, for your SME, etc. in this case, and talking about Mexico, well, Mexico is aligned to IP general rules in the world. And the rules between Europe and Mexico are very, very similar. Fortunately, intellectual property rights are very common wide. So and we are very close in Mexico to the rules provided in Europe as well as worldwide. Please bear in mind that. And also, certainly, well, it is important that you are not invading third-party rights when you are arriving to a new market. I'm pretty sure that well, most of you have information and have will have certain rules to follow up. But in this case, please remember that if you are planning to reach Mexico, in this case as markets, of course, it will be lovely. Please bear in mind that you need to be you need to be conscious about the intellectual property rights that you have and the rights that maybe are in Mexico. The agenda, in a swift point of view, it's well, we will talk about some cosmetic figures in Mexico. I think it's very, very interesting, this information, and of course, an overview of intellectual property rights in Mexico focused to the cosmetics industry, some takeaway messages, as well as a question and answer stage. So if you have some questions, please write it down in order to give us at the end of the presentation. From the first, it's a motto that I drafted when I was preparing this. From the first innovations to the last inventions, humanity cared always about cosmetics. And these are some examples from old patents or old designs, patent designs or designs protected in the world. But together we are looking for some of the most innovative designs protected. In order to discuss about cosmetics figures in Mexico, well, it was very interesting for me to learn that in Mexico, personal care are very, very important. And it is highly, well, despite Mexico, it's a very important manufacturer of cosmetics for the rest of the world, we have lots of importations. This is always stated, of course, 2020 and 2021, even some part of 2022, and there have been some specific situations in regard to markets due to the coronavirus pandemics. However, in Mexico, these figures are in million US dollars. In Mexico, we have lots of importations of cosmetics. We have also some exportations, and I may say that we have some maquila, some manufacturers from outside, that the technology, the trademarks are from outside, and some companies have their facilities and manufacturing facilities here in Mexico, and that's why we have lots of importations too. However, please note that the market is very eager to import personal care products. In this case, it's also important to bear in mind that this situation in 2019 raised it, and the project is that the amounts of importations will be rising at least in the following months, in the following years, sorry. And I also conducted an investigation in order to check in the personal care industry which products are more influence or are the influencing in Mexico. We have here figures from 2019, and of course the first and most developed industry in regard to the personal care has been in the skincare. Also, hair care have a very, very important figure here, as you have been checking. Makeup also a little slight down, but in a very important position also is the makeup as well as the shaving industry. In less importance, but of course with a very, very interesting figures, are the fragrances and deodorants, and maybe mm, in the last part of the list are the sun care and the waxing products. However, as you have seen, fragrances, skincare, makeup, shaving, all those industries are very, very important for the Mexican market. I think this is a very, very important information. I collected this information from the National Chamber of the industry of the personal care as well as home care. Now, an overview of intellectual property rights focused, of course, in the cosmetics industry in Mexico. Very interesting, and I hope you will be delighted as me listening and learning all this information. Why is it important to bear in mind your intellectual property in Mexico? I'm pretty sure that most of you have some culture in regard to intellectual property rights. It's the same, the same importance to keep and to protect your intellectual property in your countries, in your European countries, or in Europe. It's the same as in Mexico. So it's very, very important to protect. Why? Well, there are some benefits. The privileged position in the market, of course, the trademarks. You know that some products are very similar. Maybe you will have some slight um, technologies or some differences. However, in some markets that are, as you have seen, it's a very important market in Mexico, the personal care market. So um, in order to obtain, in order to gather, in order to retain the consumers, well, of course, it is important to keep a good position in the market. So that's a way used, or a way to use the intellectual property as a tool for you. Also, a better position to negotiate. To negotiate here in Mexico, as I mentioned, there are some companies, um, foreign companies, that invest in Mexico, not only in the distribution of products, but also in the manufacturing. Mexico sometimes has sufficient market, and you may know that Mexico is one of the countries in the world that have more trade agreements in the world. So this advantage has been taken by many companies in the world in order to establish distribution centers as well as manufacturers, and of course, having a solid intellectual property portfolio place you in a better position to negotiate. You keep the control of your IP right overseas. So, in many cases, of course, the intellectual property rights are handled by the headquarters company, and usually, as I mentioned, the headquarters are in foreign companies, mostly in European companies, as well as some other American companies. So it is important to have control of your intellectual property rights from the headquarters, even you are overseas. Increase the value of your business. Of course, you know that it's part of the very valid and valuable asset. So it's very important to use this once again to increase the value of your business, and well, the enforcement of your rights when necessary. Unfortunately, likewise, Mexico is one of the countries in the world that we have most problems regarding counterfeits as well as piracy. So if you don't have properly protected your intellectual property rights in Mexico, well, of course, it will be a headache to protect your rights without proper filing and proper rights granted in the Mexican territory. You may have also support from Mexican authorities to be a barrier against illegal products in transshipment to other countries in America. America, of course, in this case, I am talking about the continent. You may know that Mexico is placed in the American continent in a very strategic place. So many vessels, as well as airplanes, arriving from Asia, for example, also from Europe, arrives to Mexico, and from Mexico they are distributed to the United States, to Canada, as well as to Latin America. So I have I, I know, and I have been part of enforcement strategies in order to take advantage of the good well, the goodwill of the customs authorities here in Mexico in order to seize and to stop and to seize some products in transshipment to the other countries to other countries in America, and this is also a very important situation to bear in mind. We are going to take a swift view in regard to inventions. Uh, as Cesar mentioned, the intention here is not to provide specific legal advice or to be a legal a law class. However, it is very important for all of you to know that in regard to inventions, there are some very important criteria that are established worldwide, practically worldwide in all countries in the world. It's more or less the same criteria in regard to inventions. We have the criteria of novelty, the inventive step, the usefulness, as well as sufficient disclosure of the invention in the application, and I may say that these four are the most important and most relevant criteria to protect your inventions. And when I'm talking about inventions, well, of course, I'm including patents as well as the petit patents or the let me check if I can provide you or the utility models, or also the sorry for this, or the designs, the different designs, draws, or three-dimensional designs. Sorry for passing this too quick, but in a second we will be once again in the next slides. In order to be very swift, to provide you with a very swift idea, novelty, it's the idea to have this invention not already invented. It's novel, it's new, totally new. And in Mexico, it's very similar in the rest of the world, but in Mexico we have universal novelty. That means that any the disclosure, as well as the inventions patented or not patented in any other country of the world will destroy the novelty in Mexico. So it is very important to bear in mind this. It is very important to bear in mind, because if you want to have an invention protected in Mexico, then you need to check, to have a check and provide with sufficient time the application in Mexico of your invention, because if you lose the specific times, I will discuss this later, but if you lose this window to file your application, then the invention will be a part of the non-protected rights in Mexico in regard to inventions. So novelty is very important, and once again, as I mentioned, is universal, has a universal criteria. Also, the designs, for example, I know in some countries the novelty in the case of the designs are only. Or they have only a national criterion, but in Mexico, once again, it's universal. That means that in any country, anywhere in the world, if the design or if the invention have been disclosed, even if it is or it is not protected, this may kill the novelty in Mexico. The inventive step, it's very easy. It's simply the effort of the inventor to change, well, to provide with a really new and a really innovative way to solve a technical problem. The usefulness, well, it's very clear. It's the idea to have a useful invention, and in this case, the sufficient disclosure of the invention in the application means that the invention needs to be replied, or shall be replied by a person with knowledge of the field of the art, in order to copy, or well, to reproduce. It's a very word, to reproduce this invention in the future. You know that you will have certain time of protection, but as soon as this protection ends, then all the patents, the designs, the models, well, the utility models will be part of the knowledge, the disclosed knowledge, and not protected knowledge in the world. In this case, in Mexico. About patents, the patents, and as well as utility models, the criteria are very similar as in Europe. I may say that it's practically the same. Patents looks or try to solve a technical problem in a new way, in order to solve this problem. And in the industry, the the cosmetics industry, this is very, very common. I may say that together with the pharma industry, cosmetics, it's one of the most developed industries in regard to intellectual property, and protecting patents, as well as developing some inventions. You may find very different type of patents. I may confess that it was not easy for me to find an example, because most of these inventions regard to chemicals, and maybe I may place here a chemical formula, but it does not look so good. So, however, the development in the cosmetics industry is very strong. It's very dynamic, and in this case, well, it's one of the industries, worldwide industries, that are very, very present in regard to patents. In the case of utility models, it's the use of an already existing device, in order to make this device to provide with new uses or a better use. It's a very simple explication of the utility models in some countries. For example, in France, they are called petit brevet. That means a small patent, because it's very, very similar. But if you remember this inventive step effort, it is not required in the case of utility models. And fortunately, in Mexico, we have both figures. We have both intellectual property figures. So you may reach the patent protection, and if the office consider that the inventive step, it is not clear, then you may switch your application to a utility model. Of course, the patent, as practically worldwide, the protection is 20 years, and in the case of the utility models, they are 10 years. And however, despite it is a smaller time of protection, also you may have a good portfolio in regards to protection, to protecting these smaller inventions, for a way to say so. There are once again in the industry very different developments from long time ago, and they may be part of an idea. And lastly, you may this may result in a very good option of business, as I am here showing. Once again, in the area of cosmetics, I have been investigating, and you may know that there are some very, very important uh, investigation areas. Even they are talking about artificial skin. So, as you have seen here, there are very wide opportunities to develop patents, and of course, well, to develop inventions, and these inventions, in order to avoid the misuse of them, or the use without any payment of royalties, well, it is very important to protect them through patents. I may say it in this case that I have been shocking when I reviewed that there are developings in regard to artificial skin. We are talking about these very, very no very new technologies. In regard to designs, where the designs, it's an intellectual property figure that looks to provide, or well, the intention is to provide protection under or in regard to the shape of the products. As my students, I explain them that the idea of a design is to protect, to protect how nice, how beauty is the product. So also, there are uh, different developments in regard to personal care. In the case of here in the left hand, it's a soap, and it's a soap cake, and at the right, it's a toothbrush electric, that it is old. However, as you have seen, there some designs are protected, and in this case, it's very important to learn, well, to remember that the designs do not protect technology. They protect the shape. They protect how beauty it's the product, and of course, as part of cosmetics, the importance of the beauty of, in this case, of the things as well as the persons. So the designs are a very interesting tool to protect the developings in regard to personal care. Here, it's a very important point. We may talk hours in regards to patents, and hours in regard to the different figures of intellectual property rights that protects innovative developments. However, in this case, it's very, very important to bear in mind for you that as long as I am checking here the list, practically all of you are in Europe, and it is very important to bear in mind, as part of your schedule, the protection of your innovations. It is very important to foresee where are you going to protect, because despite the case of trademarks, that it is not recommended, but it is possible to obtain protection in this case for a trademark later, or time after the filing of the first filing of the application of the trademark, I mean, in the case of novel products, or in the case of innovations, it is not possible. As once again, as I mentioned, in Mexico we have universal criterion novelty, and in this case, if you choose or you mischoose to Mexico as part of your protection countries, or the countries that you will send your applications, or you will look for the protection of your innovations, then they will be lost. Well, there will not be a further opportunity to obtain to obtain protection. So it is very important to bear this in mind. Please know, or please also take note that in Mexico as well as in Europe, I know that this depends on any country, but we have the opportunity, according to the law, to disclose the invention, maybe in a fair, or maybe in a magazine article, or by internet, or by a homepage, etc. But this time it's only in regards to 1 year. So if you disclose the information in this case, and after or passing that year, you don't formalize your application of a patent, of a utility model, or a design, then you will lose the opportunity in the future. So please bear this in mind. About distinctive signs, it's also very, very fascinating. And I know, as once again I mentioned, the industry cares lots about this specific area of the intellectual property rights. We have in a quick overview trademarks, slogans, trade names, as well as appellations of origin. Talking about trademarks, well, here, despite Europe and despite some European countries, as well as despite some other countries in the world, we have been updated our laws, our industrial property law, in order to authorize the protection of any noticeable sign for well, any sign noticeable for one of the senses. So we have practically the imagination to to find, or to look to protect in this case a sign. And we may have words, we may have draws, we may have smells, we will have holograms, we will have three-dimensional figures, or designs. We may have also tastes, etc. So this is a very, very interesting point. I also discussed with Cesar when we were preparing this, that Mexico provides in this case some protection, even further the protection provided in the European Union. So you may find some very, very specific ways to protect some signs regarding your industry or your businesses. And you may have even this protection when you are not available to obtain this protection in other countries. So this is a very important point to bear in mind. With traditional, we have non-traditional protections of trademarks. I mentioned the trademark is, as in practically all the world, it's 10 years renewable. Must be used in Mexico, declaration of use also, and Vienna and Nice conventions applied. And in the case of slogans, I may say that Mexico has also a very, well, it has a specific protection under slogans. I know, as long as I understand, in many countries in Europe, the slogan as a specific intellectual property figure is not recognized, but in Mexico we do. So we have it's understood as a sui generis protection. Only words, of course, are protected. Also, it's very similar as trademarks. They are renewable. The protection is for 10 years and must be used in Mexico, and it applies to the Nice Convention. But in this case, we have different. It's a different protection, the protection given by trademark as well as slogan, and some large slogans or some large phrases may be protected as slogan. Once again, as I mentioned, the trademarks, we have the traditional that are worldwide recognized as words and signs, or the mixture of both. And we have also non-traditional trademarks. As examples, we have scent, sounds, tastes, three-dimensional protection. Well, designs, location of the products, some dynamic trademarks, as well as holograms. We have here some examples of trademarks in regard to the industry. As I mentioned, in regard to slogans, we have some phrases. For example, here we have a long sentence: "El secreto mejor guardado de la industria cosmética." For example, this is too long to not be recognized as trademark is, according to some criterions, so according to criterions in Europe. So if you want to protect this large phrase, it is not possible to protect through a trademark in Europe, as long as I understand. However, in Mexico, we have the possibility to protect it as slogan. So once again, it is very important for you, when you check your portfolios, your IP portfolios, to bear in mind that we have some certain ways to protect in Mexico um, some signs, or some distinctive signs that maybe you're not available to protect in Europe or in other countries. So it is very important to check that in Mexico you will have the possibility to reach this protection. We have also trade names. If you plan to establish an establishment, to set an establishment here in Mexico, then we may have also the protection regard trade names, as well as appellations of origin, that we are very close in the criterion to the European Union. Also, Mexico is part of the Lisbon Convention, of the Lisbon Agreement. So we have recognized and protection of um, appellations of origin, as well as geographical indications. And also we have the chance to recognize some specific appellations of origin, even out of the Lisbon Agreement, when Mexico signs or recognizes through a specific agreement with a country or with an entity as the European Union. In the case of trademarks, well, it's only to identify commercial establishments, just words, etc. And under Lisbon Agreement, we have the Stockholm Act. We have here some examples: L'Oreal, Chanel, etc., as trade names, and well, as appellations of origin. In Mexico, we recognize not only agricultural products or agro-industrial products, but also industrial products, as in this case, the soap, for example, or Solingen for cutlery. Some watch outs: it is mandatory that the signs distinguishes good or services. It's very, very, very important. The trademarks and slogan class are in accordance to the Nice Agreement, that it is the same agreement recognized and used by the European Union Intellectual Property Office and the intellectual property offices in all the European countries. It is mandatory to use the granted right in Mexican territory by the owner or by a licensee. So this is also very important, and the rights obtained regarding the sign can be renewed. In regard to copyrights, we discussed, Cesar and I discussed about placing here a Batman, and you may know that Batman, of course, he uses some cosmetics. That's why here he is. But even if we look for, or in regard to copyrights, we may find some other characters that use lots of cosmetics. So in this case, also, even it is not so popular, the protection under copyrights. Mexico has a good copyright law, law window or law firm, and it may be used by all of you. We have copyrights as well as related rights. Mexico is part of the the Berne Agreement, that it's once again the same agreement used in the Europe in all the European Union countries. So we have, or you will have, the extension of the protection in Mexico. And we have economic and moral rights. They may be protected literally, artistic, or scientific works. In this case, regarding cosmetics, of course, the designs, or some designs, or some draws in regard to a cosmetic also can be protected by copyrights. The protection is, Mexico is one of the countries that provides the longest or the largest protection in all the world. It's the economic rights period from the creation to the work and until 10 years after the death of the author. It's the protection. And this was, sorry, there's not 10, it's 100. And Mexico is practically one of the very few countries in the world that provides 100 years of protection after the death of the author. So please bear in mind, it's a very interesting area to scout in your IP portfolios. We have also recognized neighbor rights, and we have also these two very important points. The registration is not needed in regard to or due to the Berne Convention, but it's highly recommended in order to provide to the authorities the presumption of authorship. And the registration in Mexico should be carried out before the National Copyright Institute. So once again, and it's important to bear in mind, registration is not needed in regard to copyrights, to works, to protected works. However, it is highly recommended. And I may say it also that according to the international, well, to the national law as well, international agreements, if you file this protection in other country, you may use this protection in Mexico, and it should be recognized by the authorities. Sorry, this is this have a maybe a not proper design, but well, sorry for this. But well, in this case, we are going to talk swiftly about reservoir rights. They are very important because it is not common in all the world, once again, and if you are interested, you may check how reservoir rights may be used in regard to your industry. But for example, periodical publications or broadcasts may be protected as a very sui generis figure. Also, human characters, fictional or symbolic. So if you have, for example, a character used in your company, it can be protected, and this important figure, well, this protection, it's very interesting because protects not only not only the shape of the character, but also the psychological shape of the character, person's groups, or promotional advertising. And we have also, as part of the Mexican portfolios, the trade secrets, that protects, of course, the know-how. And we have some protection in regard to domain names, and we are also aligned to the European Union in regards to the protection of domain names. So that's a good point to bear in mind if you want to obtain further protection in this area. And some tips. First, I may confess that Cesar provided me with the idea of this very interesting slide. You may reach Mexico in two main ways. The first of one is filing your rights, or filing your inventions or your trademarks directly in Mexico. You may do it, but please note that in all cases, Mexico, the law does not require to have a specific nationality or to be a Mexican to file it, of course. However, it requires to have an address in Mexico. an address in Mexican territory. So if you do not have an address, then you will require to ask to a firm or to a specialist to file the applications on your behalf. That's the first one. And the other way to file it, it's using some other tools like the Hawk system. That is the Hawk system is used to protect or to file in several, or with only one file to protect in several countries designs. And I may say that Mexico has been the first country in America, Spanish spoken country, joining this Hawk system, and it happened only in 2020. So it is very, very new. Also, Mexico is part of the Madrid Protocol to file the international trademarks. It's a way to say so, but remember that you file your trademark under the Madrid Protocol, but you need to follow up in Mexico. But it is possible to file with one application in Mexico. It is sometimes recommended because you do not deal with translations, and of course, in a first instance, you do not require to hire a local representative in this country or in other countries. And we are also part of the Patent Cooperation Treaty. So we do not have a multilateral patent system in Mexico. However, we recognize and we are part of the Patent Cooperation Treaty that provides you with more time to decide if, well, I may say that here the Paris Convention provides you 12 months to decide if you want to reach Mexico as part of the countries that you want to file your patent application. In the case of the use of the Patent Cooperation Treaty, these 12 months are changed to 36 months. So from the disclosure or from the first application of your patent, you or your invention, best said, you have 36 months to decide if you want to reach Mexico as part of your designed countries to file this application. And we have here some tips that we have been analyzing, and we think these are solid gold. And first of all, train yourself on IP. I may say that, as Cesar mentioned, checking the homepage of Latin America IP SME help desk. This provides you with lots of information, with lots of literature, in order to train yourself on regard to IP. Also, identify your IP rights. This is very important. Check your portfolio, check your industry. Sit down, make some meetings with your team, with your marketing team, in order to check how can you obtain further protection on your products, not only the trademark, the usual trademark, the usual word trademark, but other ways to protect your portfolios, as well as your patents, your inventions. Sometimes people develop some very important inventions, and they do not know, or they learn later or out of time that they can obtain some protection. So check it before you do some further steps in order to obtain or to increase your IP rights and your IP portfolios. See which are essential of your business expansion. Once again, this is is very similar to the second point. It's part of your analysis of your IP rights, and where in the world you think it's essential to your business in expansion. That's one of the reasons that I provided you the last one of the first slides, because as you know, Mexico, it's an important country in regards to cosmetics. So we import lots of cosmetics, and we also export lots of cosmetics. So maybe it would be part of your business expansion. Seek for professional support. This is important. Even if you have trained yourself on IP rights, always the use of professional support, it is advised. And once again, here I may say that Latin America IPSME help desk, it's built by very professional people that knows lots of details on intellectual property rights. So it is a good way to check, well, to reach if you have some doubts, if you want to have some information. Please bear in mind the opportunity to reach the hotline of the program of the help desk. Think globally. It's once again, check or remember that maybe now your product it's only sold in your country, but after you will look to rise to other countries, in this case firstly in Europe. But what will happen later? Uh, Check or bear in mind that you may reach later Latin America, and I may say that Mexico is a very good country in Latin America to reach the Latin American market, not only for the geographical position, but also because the good trade agreements that we have with all Latin America. Protect your IP before you go. This is very important. Always think in your IP registration, in adopting confidentiality measures, and defining the strategy and ensuring a solid goal, a solid branding. It's important once again to adopt confidentiality measures if you are established here, or if you have a contact with Mexican businesses. Check and always bear this in mind. Take care of your first filing. Once again, this the first filing in most of cases. It's the starting time to decide where you are going to be later. So this first filing moment, it's essential. Uh, Before I would like to suggest that if y- it's better to reach maybe some weeks later the market, but if you have a proper schedule of steps that you will follow later. So take care of your first filing, because this will kick off your strategy, or may destroy your strategy. So please bear in mind this point. Monitoring your competitors and your markets, that's a very good advice. In If you plan to or if it's important Mexican market for you, monitor your competitors, check your markets, check if there are other people using your trademarks, or maybe using your IP rights, your patents, your technology protections, well, the technology, um, um, your technologies, a way to say so, in order to learn if it's necessary to take further steps. Be prepared to enforce your rights. That's, of course, if you have a right, it is important to enforce it. It is important to bear in mind that in some time you may be in the need to enforce it. Unfortunately, here in Mexico, we have a solid frame to protect these rights. And finally, train your staff and check your strategy still fits. It's very important, because sometimes people uh, uh, let for example, the marketing areas to handle this without proper advice, without proper criterion, without thinking globally, and this ends in lots of headaches for the companies. So it is very important to have properly trained your staff, and check if the strategy developed fits in the intellectual property with the intellectual property point of view. And well, I we are in the question and answer time, and I think it's your time, dear Cesar, to be our moderator.
Thank you very much. Pretty extensive, pretty comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much. I think that the all of us now have a real picture of what we can expect about intellectual property. Now, there's, I guess, so many homeworks to do if we really want to uh, be up to date and really get the best out of what intellectual property offers in Mexico, which, as you mentioned, really one of the best countries to start from because it offers the wider range of options. It really has one of the top intellectual property standards worldwide. It's really similar, even when beyond, I say beyond, compared to Europe. And it's the doorstep to the rest of the Latin American territories and also the USA. So it's really, really good to know that there's so many possibilities. And in case you are now more interested in knowing more about it, this is what the Q&A is for. But before that, let me verify if you all were paying attention and if you finally reached the level of knowledge that everyone is supposed to gain after attending one of our sessions. And let's go again through the three simple questions of this really rush test that we performed when we started to warm up and see whether you know now whether a patent could be granted in Mexico if it does comply with one novelty, or it is just limited to the national territory, or if there is no novelty required at all. Let me know. Submit your vote, and let me see if you really paid attention to what Sergio said, because he went through this. Now, please be reactive. It's really good to see that people stood with us. So thank you very much for your patience. Let's go for the second question related to the type of IP rights that should be registered in order to get this exclusiveness that we are all seeking. Should they be all IP rights registered in order to get this type of protection, or is it enough to do it for all type of IP rights except for copyright, although it's very much recommended? Or maybe no, just I did it all in Europe and it is supposed to be enough when I go abroad. Submit your vote now and let me know. And finally, what do you think about the type of trademarks? It was so interesting to know. And Sergio already mentioned the type of trademarks that you can register in Mexico. So similar, even better than in Europe. And they are so related, so beneficial to cosmetic products, particularly to perfumes. So are smell, sound, or 3D trademarks accepted in Mexico? Yes, all of them. Just trademarks because the two of them, the rest of them are too much. Or maybe none of them. It's simply the classic approach. Okay, guys, I gave you a hint. So submit your vote now and let me know if you learned about it. And with this, we're all done. I'm checking the questions tab. I see that no one has submitted any, and we're about to reach the scheduled time. So I can only say thank you all for being there. We are really waiting to hear from you. You can have already our contact details. So should you like to be assisted on intellectual property, just let us know. Reach us via email or just request a private meeting with one of our IP experts like Sergio, and you will get something that is absolutely for free because all our services are with our no costs. It is pretty confidential. We're here to help, not to report any of your pretending infringements. And of course, no sensitive information will be disclosed. And in case you would like to have some information that will let you take advantage of the of the IP lawyers, which ultimately you need to rely on them. But thanks to us, you'd get this kind of jargon, so you can really get to them, express exactly what you're looking for, and translate your interest into specific demands. So none of you waste any time and everything is faster because money and time are really valuable for entrepreneurs, and we know that. So Segalen, Sergio, thank you very much for this very good webinar. Everyone, this is again being recorded, so just check it once and once again. And in case you didn't understand anything, just reach us. We're here for you. In the name of the Latin America IPSME Help Desk, thank you all. Segalen.
Thank you very much for your speech and explanation about all these. We need expert for that, for sure.
Thank you all. We hope to see you in the next ones because there are many upcoming. And please let us know what you think about this webinar. It's pretty fast. Come on. You only have to let us know what did you think in this pretty fast poll that I'm publishing right now. And in the meantime, if you just notice that you may have a different opinion about one of the questions, just let me know. I think it submitted it, right? Anyway, you're having a follow-up email right after this session. So in case you didn't provide your feedback, then you have a chance. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for being there. Hope to see you again. Goodbye.